Welcome to Cover Book Beat. I'm your host, Roger Nichols. One of the great delights in doing these interviews is discovering a major new talent at the beginning of their career, and that's just what we have today. Our guest is Luke Gherardi, and he has written a first book that deserves your attention. The title is Children of Violence, and it explores some of the possible outcomes for children who are exposed to violence in the home and beyond at an early age. Mr. Gherardi knows whereof he writes. He is a child of a drug and alcohol using father who was a mentally unstable hustler who lived in the gang-infested streets of St. Louis, and a mother who was a religious fanatic to the point of living in a cult-like life. They divorced when he was 2, but it wasn't any easier after that. He is a survivor of childhood cancer, and that was easier than his home life, actually. He said, "I grew up in a broken household where dysfunction was normalized." And he left just as soon as he turned 18, moved to Denver, where he knew no one and had nothing, and was able to get a job as a dock worker, work his way up to fleet safety manager. And he got a degree in avionics engineering, too. Children of Violence is a read in one sitting, gripping adventure. We're very pleased to welcome author Luke Gherardi. Good morning.
Hey, thank you for having me.
All right. Let me just say at the outset that when I read this, I was immediately reminded of the novel Clockers that Richard Price wrote that Spike Lee made into a movie in 1995. And also the works of Richard Vachis, a lawyer who wrote a lot of fiction about child abuse and neglect. So was the urge to write for you early on, or did that come later in your life?
You know, it came early, very early. I spent years, over a decade, writing. And I would write, and then I'd say, oh, I can't write about this topic, or I can't use that language. And then I'd stop writing for a while. And so after about 12, 13, 14 years, I just did it all, wrote about anything I wanted, made it as realistic as possible. And this is what we have today.
Yeah, it's amazing. Now, I understand this started out as a series of short stories. Is that correct?
Yeah, I wrote a bunch of short stories, and then I took about 6 or 7 of them, and that were all kind of in the same world, and then I kind of filled in the gaps.
Yeah, this is what we call a braided novel, where you introduce a number of characters who have speaking voices and see them from different points of view, but they all kind of intertwine and interconnect. Fascinating. Did you have to diagram all that out, or did it just come naturally?
I did. I worked really hard on the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
All across my living room floor, there'd be chapters, and I had to timeline them accordingly. As you know, the timelines kind of cross over and go back and forth. So
yeah, and
to come up to the ending, the climax.
And I will have to say, and I'm going to give anything away without committing any spoilers. Let me just say, the ending has a recursive element to it. It is both shocking and it's absolutely illustrative of the whole problem, and it kicks it up a whole nother notch. So one of the best endings I read in a long, long time. So congratulations on that. Yeah, you must have been headed toward that when you started this big project. You say, I think I can see the ending out here. Now, how do I get there?
Actually, no. I was trying to figure out how to end it, and while reading through it, it kind of dawned on me how it ended from a previous chapter.
Okay. And I've had authors say that sometimes as you're working through, the character pops up with the idea or leaps out and said, oh, they wouldn't say that. They'd say this, and you correct as you go. How many times do you have to rewrite this thing?
A lot. The problem I have is that I write proper English. Mm-hmm. And we don't speak in proper English when we talk back and forth, especially in different cultures, different environments, slang. Mm-hmm. We don't talk in proper English. And so I would write, and then I would say it out loud. And I'd walk around my kitchen island, and I'd talk back and forth in the characters to myself. And a lot of times it wouldn't sound correct. And I'd have to, from the paper, and I'd have to go back and cross things out and try it again.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of authors tell me, is that reading aloud helps them get the dialogue. And I would say the dialogue on this is spot on. I mean, I'm not a person in the gritty hood or anything, but it sort of feels absolutely realistic. So I'm sure much of your experience came through with that.
Yeah, I've been around. I wanted to write from a lot of it is from the perspective of not so good people. For example, Frederick,
Mm-hmm.
The security guard fellow.
Yeah.
I wanted to write from the perspective of the bad guy, but at the same time, nobody thinks that they're the bad guy. He thinks he's a hero. He thinks he's good. And I wanted that to come across as well. No matter how vile and bad he is, he still sees himself as a hero, as a good guy.
Oh, absolutely. He's law and order force right there. Yes. Wow.
And a lot of the stories are actually true. I went through recently, I have my own copy with a bunch of crossed out things and notes. And I think 20 or 21 stories in there are actually true, pretty close to what actually happened in real life.
It just occurred to me that you did code switching between when you'd be with your mom during the week out in the farm, and then going to the hood to visit your dad on the weekends. You changed your attitude, your language, the whole thing.
I couldn't even, like, where my mom lived, when I came back, I couldn't even really tell people. There's no way to describe what life was like there coming back. It was just so night and day, it's so different. It's a different country, I
wonder, having had that experience, if it made it easier to switch between the characters in your writing.
That's a great analysis. I never really thought about it like that, but yeah, probably.
Yeah, you were able to get out of the hostile environment. Not everybody is able to do that. What should we do as a society to help people who are in that situation?
I don't know if I have an answer to that. It's up to the individual. You have to want to get out of a bad situation. A lot of people stay in bad situations, emotional reasons, financial reasons. But if you have that opportunity to leave, you have to take it. And that's, I guess, the only advice I can really give.
Okay.
You have to be willing to cut people out of your life, unfortunately.
Yeah. One of the things that I do is I take notes as I go, and I find little things I want to ask the author about and or comment on. And one of the most engaging characters is Robbie. He was a supportive older adult Papa. And this is a quote from Papa. He says, "The world is a hard place. You can be pushed around or pushed back. It's just that simple." Now, it's always a mistake to assume the characters are speaking in the author's own voice, but somehow I have a feeling that might be right from you.
That's more of my dad.
Oh, okay.
Really, yeah. A lot of that, most of this book is my dad. There's a sequence, there's a chapter in the book where an old man escapes from a nursing home, and he goes to the store and he gets gin, watermelons, and a butcher knife, and he's chopping up the watermelons and handing them out to the old people, and no one can stop him because it's just an insane scene, and he's drunk on the gin.
Yeah, that
was my dad. That's a true story.
Wow.
And there's another situation where the security guard wants to get a picture with Mr. T. Okay, that was my dad. My dad was a security guard at that mall, and he got a camera and he was going to get a picture of Mr. T. Like that actually happened.
If we tease him this much, we should give him the punchline to what happened in that particular story.
Well, in the real story, in the real story, my dad had an assistant, and the assistant couldn't figure out how to use the camera. And so Mr. T got out of the limo, shook my dad's hand, and my dad looked over, and the guy couldn't figure out how to use it. It's a big red button on the top, and he couldn't do it. So.
Well, in the story, I will spoil this one tiny thing, because it says is that he goes and gets the camera, but forgets to buy any film.
Yeah.
And that's a nice touch there. It's a gritty portrayal. but there are moments of grace in the book as well, moments of quietude. And I'm thinking, where's that? I'm looking at my notes here. Oh, yeah. Jeff is with Gracie, and they have a day in which he writes, he says, my perfect day, so simple and unplanned. Food, Seinfeld, more food, sex, ancient currency from the area of Caesar, Lucius, Domitius, Aurelianus, Augustus, and more sex. Somehow, that's a magic paragraph, I think. And that leads,
that's a true story as well.
Oh, wow. And that leads me to ask, because I'm a coin collector, are you a numismatist as well?
No, I had this girlfriend, and she came over with this old coin that she had found helping someone move a washing machine. And we spent a day, or well, probably 3 hours online looking through all these old Roman coins until we actually found it.
Cool. There's another, well, like, again, I have to be careful not to give away too much, but the phrase "like a thief in the night" shows up a number of times in the work. I think I counted 5 different places, usually in reference to the rapture, because that's, like come like a thief in a night. And you have a character who jumps out at people in the congregation because he wants them to be always prepared, because it's going to come like a thief in the night, which is a kind of bizarre situation. Is there any tie to your real life in that?
Oh yeah, growing up, I used to, there's a part in the book where they leave the biblical tracts out, and one of them looks like a $20 bill or a $50 bill. When I was a kid, on the week when I was with my mom, I always had to have a stack of those tracts, and I'd have to leave them places, and I'd see people find them, and they'd get so mad because they think it's $20, and then they throw it away. And we had people that always had to be ready. There was an earthquake where my mom lived, and she ran outside, thinking, because she thought Jesus was coming back. This is a real story, not in the book. But it's always that thought process. Everything you do is to not go to hell, and that's the whole life. And it just destroys you. It's not, and I'm not bashing Christianity. Once you get into a certain level of religion, which is separate from Christianity, you go down a dark path.
Well, it's comforting to believe that you and your little friend group alone are the saved, and the rest of them are all going to go the wrong place. And sometimes that can be comforting to people, but sometimes it can lead them to do horrible things too. Yeah. Gosh, I have to ask a couple of things. I'm curious. You arrive in Denver. You're 18 years old. You know nobody. You have nothing. You have to get food. You have to find shelter, et cetera, et cetera. How long did it take you to get set up there?
About a month or so. Yeah, about a month.
Wow.
I'd find an apartment, and just you have a different mindset at 18, I don't think I could pack up whatever I need in a pickup truck right now and just drive 1,000 miles away and start over, wow, what an idea, but it was just a different time.
Yeah, it did. And I have to ask about the degree in avionics, which has to do with instrumentation in airplanes. Is that a direction you're moving?
No, I just studied electronics and studied all that stuff, and I never used it. No, I didn't. It was just something I found interesting at the time.
Right. And I see all the guitars on the wall behind you. Are you a musician as well?
Yes, I play the guitar and some piano. Yeah.
All right.
It took 5 years of piano, and I've been playing the guitar for 20 plus years now. It's a long time.
What's your brand of music?
I like 90s rock. It's just what I grew up with. Sure.
Wait, some of us are a little bit older, and 60s rock was more my thing, but that's, we all do like that. When people put this book down at the end, what do you want them to take away from it?
Well, some people have told me that they're mad, kind of at the ending.
Mhm.
Some people question, some people love it. And I was asked yesterday, I was asked yesterday an interesting question. A guy at work asked me, do I have the right to use that kind of language? Because there's a lot of racial undertones, a lot of really rough situations that involve a lot of bad language. And I explained to him, and everyone, a lot of people have agreed with me on this. This is the character, not me. So the character Frederick, for example, he does not like Black people. Like, that's it. He wants to join the Klan. That's not me. That's his character. And if he sees someone that he doesn't like that's Black, he's not going to say, hello, fellow African American. He's going to use different language.
Yeah.
So I have to use language that's going to be real to who the character is, not necessarily myself in any way.
Yeah. And that's why I mentioned earlier, it's bad to think that what the character spouting is what the author believes. Sometimes you need a character to be a bad guy. And and it's just necessary for the story arc to proceed.
And I wanted to write from that perspective as well, as I said. And it was kind of scary for me after I wrote him, how far I went with who he was as a person. Like, it kind of shocked me as well.
To find out you had all those ideas in your head about what he would think, but they're there in your head too. So yeah, that's weird.
Because you have to kind of become that guy, and what would he say and what would he want to do? And
there are, you mentioned that there were other short stories that you'd written, and I'm wondering if there's another collection out there possible like this, because this is a zinger. This will catch people's attention.
I am writing a new book that's completely different and doesn't have any connection to this one, I think. And the other stories, some of them didn't get used because, they're not mine. Sometimes I wrote about stories that happened to people, but I would ask them, I'd say, hey, this is something that's interesting. Can I write about this? And they would say yes, but some of the content is more or less embarrassing to ask someone, can I write about? There's some, you thought my book was dark. There's some stuff I wrote about that isn't in the book that I didn't write about because I didn't ask the people permission.
Cool. Where do you see yourself going in the future with your writing career?
There's a couple kinds of writers. There's guys like, I don't know, Nicholas Sparks or Dean Koontz, or they come out with a book a year, right? That's not me. I don't believe I have that in me. I don't think it's just my calling. And then there's people that write a few books. They just have something to say, and then that's it. And I think that's more or less me. I think I have one more book in me right now, and that's what I'm currently working on.
All right. Well, some people can have awesome careers with just a book or two. You think of To Kill a Mockingbird, for example, and many zillions of copies that sold over the years. So is there anything that I have not touched on you want to make sure gets in the interview out to our listeners?
Just check it out and leave. I love to hear people's responses. If you do get a copy, leave a review. Let me know if you don't like it.
And you have a website or
I do. It's lukegherardi.com, and the easiest place to get the book is on Amazon, and it's available. You can go on my website and see where it's available. Target.com, BarnesandNoble.com. But the easiest place is obviously Amazon.
All right. Well, you have been extraordinarily patient with our questions today, and we absolutely love the book. Our guest has been Luke Gherardi. The book is Children of Violence. Highest possible recommendation. Go out, buy multiple copies. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. I hope I did you justice, because you're an awesome guy. And I really appreciate that. So what I will do is I will put a little, some titles and stuff on this and throw it up on YouTube. And do you want me to send a link directly to you? I don't think I have your email.
You can give it to Sherry. You can
Sherry,
just,
okay, that's fine. Yeah.
My email is my name, the number 2 at Gmail, lukeGherardi2@gmail.com.
Okay, I'll probably copy you along with her at the same time that we do that. I'm hoping to get that done this afternoon, our time, but it might be tomorrow, but it'll get up there.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me,
Oh, yeah. And by the way, if you want, you're more than welcome to grab a copy and post it on your own site. All we ask is you get a little credit to where you got it. So.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, and keep up the excellent work.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Yeah.